Demeco Ryans and CJ Stroud on the same page ahead of Monday night's game against the Bucs. Fixing the issues, being prepared, and giving Nick Caley something to work with is essential for a Texans win.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for coming back. If you're my everydayers from the Himalaya, making me a part of your everyday schedule, listening to myself as heard on ESPN Southwest Radio, here at KHOU right here in Houston, Texas Credential Beauty member and football analyst John Hickman. First time guest or listener, thank you for stopping by. This is the Texans Talk Show podcast that you want to listen to every day. Today's episode, I'll be diving into the YouTube comments. Some of y'all have been pressing the chaotic button, the red button, the panic button. Some of you guys are a little bit more understanding of the issues that the Houston Texans are facing right now. So we'll dive into a couple of those YouTube comments. Also, being better takes time. We'll talk about, CJ Stroud getting punched in the mouth week one, what he's been doing to prepare himself and get to where he needs to be. And also taking a team that found success 20 years ago and using that as a reference point for him to be a better quarterback, for this to be a better offense, and ultimately for this to be a Super Bowl winning team. I opened up today's show just looking at the importance of the leaders being on the same page to fix the offense, to fix the issues altogether. And the leaders, Demeco Ryan, CJ Stroud, those two guys are the leaders. And those two guys are the two men that came into this organization a couple of seasons ago and turned it all around. So we'll talk about that, but this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Now, hey, Coach, how do you feel about CJ Stroud going into this week? What's your thoughts, Coach?
There's no pressure on CJ. We line up and we play ball.
We line up, we play ball. That is from your head coach, Demeco Ryans, in regards to pressure on CJ Stroud to bounce back from week one. Before I dive into the conversation, I want to mention this to you guys. When I was out there, my everydayers from the Himalayas have heard me talk about this before, but when I was out there at training camp, one thing that I noticed was how easy it was for Demeco Ryans to lead the defense on their side of the field, their practice field, and really immerse himself and be around and be eyes around the offense. So I just want to make sure that I say that before I go into my conversation with you guys. And because I think when we look at Demeco Ryans and where he is now as a coach, we know the defense is going to be good. He has been the consistent factor for this defense. Himself, Matt Burke, and Dino Vasso were all right as well since taking over in 2023. The defensive side of the ball going into year three of Demeco Ryans has had the consistency to be better, to grow and to learn each other and communicate because the stars have been the stars. The players have been the players on that side of the ball. They added Kamari, but since Kamari didn't have to be a number one, the growing pains was a little bit lighten the load for him a little bit. You look at Henry T's growth. When he came in, he wasn't expected to be the number one guy. Now, a couple of years in the league, look where he is. And so the leaders are in place. The system is in place. The coaching is in place. Flip side, go to the offense. That's not the case for Houston, especially in 2025, where they moved on from Larry Tunsil, they moved on from Bobby Slowick, and then in week one, we see the immediate issues of how that's caused that team to only score 9 points, no TDs. The offense in disarray and chaotic, right? And I can't wait to talk about a couple of things. But then also I'm looking at the pressure or the moving around of some of those players. You get the rookie moving back to right after he has been practicing their left, getting Titus Howard back in. The offense has been in constant disarray for the past season, and opening up week one. Now, for the Houston Texans, I think Demeco heard CJ Stroud's words loud and clear, the lollygagging word. I think he heard it loud and clear. And between those two, in cooperation with Nick Caley, they're going to figure this thing out. Both took ownership of what the issues were, whether leading up to the game or during the game. So we look at practice, the lollygagging comment, which to me still seems absurd to say, but I like the realness and honesty from your quarterback. Also, the issues during the game. Between the two of them, they mentioned helping out offensive coordinator Nick Caley, not being caught up in second and long or third and long. They both mentioned that in their post-practice press conference on Thursday. Both mentioned just being better in the pocket. Demeco Ryans was asked about the offensive line. He was like, hey, I thought they did a pretty good job, right? CJ said, personally, I've got to be better, just pocket movements, checking the ball down when I need to check it down. When asked about the areas he wanted to fix in his game this week, again, Demeco Ryans, we can help ourselves by stepping up in the pocket on a couple of sacks that happened, referring to the job the offensive line did in week one. They are speaking each other's language, and that's what is needed to hear right now, of course, but it's needed to be seen. It was a rough week one for Houston for that offense, right? The defense held a team to 14 points, right? It was rough for the Houston Texans offense. And to get back on track, Demeco and CJ must be the captains to steer the ship. Okay, why Demeco? Well, he's the head coach, right? He's a guy that has been a part of 2 offensive coordinator searches. And then when you look at why CJ Stroud, he is the quarterback. I think a lot of people look at the game now, and I'm on this page every day, as I've heard me say this before, making your job easier for your quarterback. And I'm 100% going to stand on that. But also, the quarterback's job isn't always going to be easy, but the quarterback expectation is still to be able to go out there and deliver. Now, a few people may feel like CJ isn't delivering or not. I can't wait to talk about some things when I look into a deep dive of how Houston can win this game, like I did with the Rams. I do that with the Bucs. Also in the second segment, just looking at how it's going to take time for Houston to get better. Well, Demeco spoke on it early in the week on Texans radio, but making sure Chubb is getting fed the ball when it's working out in the run game. This is what the Houston Texans have to do, number one, because Houston cannot have another game where the average on third down is 10.7 yards to go. That was a recipe for disaster last year. And in some ways, especially considering the continuity that is no longer in Houston because guys have been moved on from, that is a recipe for chaos in 2025. So they have to improve from those second and third and long situations. And also, when you look at being able to run the ball effectively, Nick Chubb, 13 carries, 60 yards. He actually helped me out on prospects. So shout out to Nick Chubb, getting a groove for himself. But if he can run the ball effectively, or if the Houston Texans altogether, because I don't believe they should abandon the running back by committee. Some of those guys need to be able to take relief off of Nick Chubb, who is up in age now, right? His body has had some wear and tear, and I believe that guy should be Woody Marks. That's just me. Some people may disagree. I understand it, but he is the next best option for the Houston Texans. But running the ball well, and this is an alarming stat that was found in week one. The Texans' play action percentage and motion percentage were down from 2021. Granted, unfair to judge just one game versus a whole year, but here's what I'm getting at. Chubb getting going throughout the game gives Houston that running threat to utilize the play action to their advantage. This could lead to those explosive plays, which Houston lacked against the Rams. And also, when I judge CJ Stroud, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the second segment because he's going to mention the team. But when I judge CJ Stroud, when I look at his eyes, there is something that needs to be said about where his eyes go first when either the pressure is coming there or operating in terms of the situation from down to distance for success. But they got to be able to run the ball effectively so they can utilize the play action, so they can get their quarterback comfortable in ways that he was unable to be in week one. So, again, that could lead to explosive plays, something the Houston Texans lacked against the Rams, being able to run the ball effectively For context, the Texans only use motion on 35.3% of Stroud's dropbacks. That was 26 in the NFL, and play action on 11.1% for CJ Stroud. That was 30th in the NFL. Those are numbers that essentially you don't want to see Houston be at the bottom of the league again in those areas when Nick Caley was a guy that was brought in with these different backgrounds and including those different backgrounds, motion and play action is a part of it. All right. When Houston did use motion against the Rams, Stroud, 9 out of 11, 81.8% for 105 yards, 9.5 yards per attempt with a 106 passer rating. When they use play action, Stroud was 303 for 47 yards. The issue is when you put yourself in those compromising downs where the opposing defenses know that, hey, this team is chaotic right now, that's going to continue to be Achilles' heel. The lollygagging target, the comment that CJ Stroud made, that's a target on his back. The penalty target is on their backs. Will Houston respond? This offense goes where the quarterback takes them. A quarterback who has been watching a lot of old Tom Brady, acknowledging acknowledging that getting to that point where the Patriots were takes time. Should Texan fans worry? More Locked On Texans on the other side of the break. Don't go nowhere. We're talking Texans. It's almost a weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players deliver when it matters most. Let's break it down. I got to be honest with you guys, man. For me, this is just for me, the Green Bay Packers quarterback. Some of y'all not going to like to hear this. Jordan Love, 19 of 31, nearly 300 yards in the air, 2 TDs. He also got a little bit active on the ground. Total of 304 yards against the Washington Commanders on Thursday Night Football. He only sacked twice, but did a very good job of avoiding some of the pressure. Jordan Love right now looks to have the Packers to a point where we have to seriously consider them to be the threat to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And that's just me keeping it real. And just like Jordan Love delivered for the Green Bay Packers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up stack it up all this season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Make your college football Saturday fun. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Also, Texas fans, one thing that I love about the Locked On Network is we got deals. We got deals, and we keep it real with you. And keeping it real means letting you know that FanDuel got something for everybody. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. No matter what it is, you got $300 at your disposal to use all through FanDuel. FanDuel is super easy. It's quick. The best way to add a little bit more to energy to your Sundays. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the fantasy app, the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Texan fans, we got a game Monday night, and I hope you guys are at these stadiums on time, ready to cheer on your Houston Texans. And if you've listened to the crossover show, I said, man, it's tough to pick Houston in this game. It would have been easier to pick the Houston Texans if they went out there and if the final score was 10-14, but they scored a touchdown, then I'd be able to evaluate them and judge them a little bit more fairly because a touchdown was scored. But what hurts to watch from this team is the consistent constantly relying on Kaimi Fairbairn. I think that's unfair to the team. I think it's unfair to the kicker because eventually the kicker's going to let you down, and everybody likes to run out the kicker out of town before they run out maybe who's in charge of the offense or the head honcho guy on the offense. Now, They got to make sure they get Nico Collins involved. They cannot go another game with 5 targets, 3 catches for 25 yards. That is absurd. That can't happen. But for the Texans, they got to leave week 1 where week 1 is at. And that was last week. So CJ Stroud actually talked about moving past week 1. Hear what he has to say.
Well, I mean, you kind of answered my question. It's a lot better to get punched in the mouth early and not fall and hopefully like not be too hurt. I don't know. I'm trying to think of boxing. Shout out Crawford. Man, come on, dog. I got to. That boy Trim. But I like Canelo too, but I'm going with Crawford. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think I don't know, like, what we're gonna do? Sit around here and cry about it? Like, it's the NFL. It's part of the game. We played really bad, and we still had a chance to win. Like that shows, I think, to our team that how talented we are and how good we can be. And it's 1 week, and I'm not the person to just give a whole bunch of grace and no truth, and a whole bunch of truth and no grace. I'm a little bit of both. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say. I think for me, I've been in this team myself. I've been in this position a bunch where everybody thinks you suck and whatever they want to think. Cool, y'all go ahead and do that. We're gonna continue to grind. If we lay an egg again, we're gonna get back up. We're gonna trust each other. It really doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. So, it takes time to build. Like we've been watching. Sorry, I know I'm long-winded, but watching a lot of film of New England back when they were like in 2002, 2003, 2004. They didn't. Now, of course, they won, but they didn't look like what they did in their strong run right away. And of course, that's the goal, to get it as quick as possible. But sometimes it's not the reality. So I'm trying my best to keep our guys' mojo up, and I think we're doing a good job of it.
Now, CJ, it is not cool to lay another egg, especially in a primetime game at home. But earlier this week, there has been 2, I think, very important point of references that I'm going to encourage Texan fans to look into, right? The first one, Tom Brady, the greatest to ever do it, on the Colin Cowherd show, talked about Bill Belichick taking over in quarterback meetings once their QB coach had passed away, which for Brady helped him learn defensive coverages and knowing how to beat certain coverages, knowing what the looks look like, what the fakes look like. So that's number one, right? And we just heard CJ Stroud talk about the early days of the Patriots. Also, Brian Hoyer was on the Games with Names podcast where he said the early days of the Patriot offense, eventually getting to the, McDaniels and Bill O'Brien, it puts the onus on players, taught you how to react and think for yourself. And he mentioned that offense had alerts, audibles, changing of protections, and changing of routes. The last part I want to mention, it's important to get Christian Kirk, Braxton Berrios back out there as soon as possible. Neither of those players practiced on Friday, so Houston has until Saturday to see if they're going to practice or not to activate them for Monday night's game. And it's Saturday, not Friday, because it's on Monday and not Sunday. And I'm going to point to the fact that, hey, I think this would have been a great opportunity for John Mechie, but he is no longer in Philly. Kill me all you want. I think that he'd been very good at changing the routes. But to get back to being better, taking time. Did we overreact to the loss on Monday? No, we didn't. No, we did not. Why we didn't overreact? Well, for one, you have a quarterback that is throwing the ball to Nico Collins. You have a CJ Stroud throwing the ball to Nico Collins, right? So that alone, you would think would be able to be enough to get you a tutty, right? And then we also didn't overreact to the fact that, hey, they had their average on third down was 10.7. I don't know what the average was for second down, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was a 10.11. Right? So we didn't overreact to why Houston struggled. We didn't overreact to the fact that Houston didn't score a touchdown. I think that those are pretty we can agree on that is something to overreact to and in a way kind of call out. Like, they got to be better, right? They can't have penalties. They can't get to the red zone and not score points again. That's an issue. They cannot rely on Kami Fairbairn. But when I look at what being better looks like for Houston and why it's going to take time. Essentially, the Texans are stripping down everything that CJ Stroud did for the last 2 seasons, which, and I tweeted this on Twitter a few days ago, and I want to shout out my boy Kenneth Calhoun. I tweeted, I noticed that we saw old slow it concepts on Sunday. I wonder if that was done to help CJ adjust to some of the new concepts and what the offense will require from him moving forward. I can't emphasize enough that when Houston played in front of the sticks, things look better. They cannot afford to surrender 11 penalties again. My man Kenneth Calhoun tweeted me back this. I saw the same thing, and I do think he said, I do think those are CJ's preferred routes. I also know the old Patriot offense is predicated on option routes, and with Kirk and Berrios being out, there wasn't a receiver left with experience to run those option routes. Noah won't be ready for that for a while. Now, hopefully Noah can kind of speed things up, but perfection takes time. And for a quarterback that is still developing in the NFL, which I think is important to look at, the CJ is still developing. He can make every throw, but developing isn't always a physical thing. Sometimes it's a mental thing, and I think that's where CJ Stroud is, scrapping and breaking everything down from 2024 and 2023, and now using 2025 as a foundation to then build on. This thing for the Houston Texans, it's going to have some ups and downs. And for me, I like to see CJ Stroud use his eyes low to high. Again, my man Kenneth Calhoun pointed that out, and I'm going to give him credit for that, because a lot of times when we see things break down for CJ, and to be fair to CJ, Houston doesn't have a lot of guys that's getting open underneath, which needs to change, and hopefully against the Bucs it will. But a lot of times he's still looking for that big shot down the field. In this offense, it is better to live another down. It is better to go 2nd and 7 than 2nd and 10. And I think that's an adjustment for CJ Stroud that he's going to have to make. Overall, the overreactions for the most part, I think, are fair. Holding your quarterback to a standard. Listen, when he played against the Bucs in 2023, lit him up. Lit the ass up. 5 TDs, over 300 yards. I mean, that was a game where he kind of put himself on the map, right? We've seen him have performances where it's just like, my goodness, this guy's a hell of a quarterback. He's the franchise. So holding him to a standard, I think, is fair. But also, if we bring it back down to life a little bit, where he wants to be in his career, where the Houston Texans want this offense to operate, and ultimately where the fans want to see this offense operate, is going to take time for the Houston Texans to maximize its full strength. It doesn't mean Houston won't win games. Houston will struggle, but for this thing to reach its full potential, it could take a couple of weeks. And that's why, again, from my everyday, as you've heard me say this time and time again, that early bye week is a blessing for Houston. It gives them an opportunity to chill, reset, take a breath, and also kind of review themselves and see, okay, who needs to kind of get more playing time, who needs to have some snaps taken away, and also, do we flat out need to trade for a playmaker that can just do some things in the offense that we don't have nobody here currently can do for us. On the other side, I'm going to look at the YouTube comments. What y'all been talking about, man? I want to hear from you. More Locked On Texans on the way. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowd, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. So this week's moment that moved the game forward is CJ Stroud post-game press conference using the word lollygagging. Now, is that a positive thing? It could have a negative connotation. Let me tell you why this is positive. For CJ Stroud to come out there and say that lollygagging, it puts a target on not only his back, but head coach Demeco Ryan's back. And now that forces every party involved to come together to move this offense forward. So that means this past week of practice should have been sharp. No lollygagging. Run it again, coach. I didn't like how it looked. That means making sure the penalties are way down. Got to go from 11, and I think 5 penalties in this game is fair. If they get less than that, good job, Texans. That means being on your P's and Q's and being prepared for what the Bucs defense will throw at your quarterback. So that's why it's positive. Now it forces everybody to lock in, block out the noise, and say, hey, listen, we got a game to win, and this is how we're going to do it. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Texas fans, the greatest fans on earth. Y'all are the greatest to do it, man. Thank you for making Locked On Texans your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go ahead and check out Locked On NFL. NFL season is finally here. So you got Tyler, the Madman Roland, giving you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins, the OG, takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, it's time to take a trip to the YouTube comments where, like I said, man, it's been up and down. My man, let's see here. My man, Chap and Captain said, John's a Bucs dream, gave up on the home team. And then there's a few comments that kind of resonated with what I said. My man, Steve K. LL98, he said, I agree with John. Offense has to prove it, prove that it can score points, or score TDs in sequential games before I believe the Texans can win. Naima W15M. Y'all got some interesting YouTube names, man. Texans have to score more touchdowns and have to have better second halves for me to believe they will win games. Hey, listen here, man. Chapin Captain, it ain't just me. Listen, what the Houston Texans did this offseason, let me tell you what they did, right? They gave us hope on the premise of optimism that the coaching will be better, right? And that led to Houston not really going out there and getting for sure, upgrades at guard. That led to Houston not replacing the star power of both Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Now, they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, those two young men I loved a lot. If you're an everydayer, you've heard me talk about them before. But they sold us on coaching is going to get these guys over the hump, right? That's what they sold us on. So throughout the offseason, you can only go based off of what they sold us and what we've seen. And to this point, we've seen an offense that didn't have the for sure star power of anyone outside of Nico Collins to get open to make plays down the field or underneath to create yak yards. We still saw an offensive line that I think we judged a little bit unfairly because there was some shuffling of the offensive line. Now Ed Ingram is back, so he's going to start, which I believe is going to force Houston to put Ursary back at left, Titus at right, and they're going to move with the unit that was the best unit when the offense started to pick up. But overall, why should we believe that the Houston Texans offense will score enough points to keep up with the Bucs if they were not able to do it in week 1? And it's not that they lost. Like, let's get that clear. It's not that the Houston Texans lost. It's how they lost. It's how things went down. So I think I'm fair in saying, hey man, I gotta pick the Bucs in this game, which, by the way, in that crossover episode, I also mentioned my score could flip for Houston. I just need to see them have a positive drive that ends in a touchdown, not getting all the way down to the 25-yard line, and then your play call on first and second down jeopardizes and compromises the offense, and now you're looking at 3rd and long, and now you have to settle for a field goal. I am tired of watching that movie. I don't need another remake of that movie. I don't need another Freaky Friday. I don't need a Friday 4, and I don't need another successful drive halted and resulting in a field goal for the Houston Texans instead of 7. I'm tired of seeing it. Moving on to the next YouTube comments. So Melvin Ray 4966, a normal name. Thanks. Shout out to Melvin. On that Rams game, if we would have came out ready to play, we would have beaten the Rams. And Mr. Sneeby 713 says we were one drive away from winning that. If Dalray didn't fumble, we scored there. Wouldn't be as much panic. We don't know Houston would have scored there because they got down in the red zone before and went 0 for 1. Guys, like, I don't think this is overreacting, but people are fed up of watching a team that is on the offensive side of the ball anchored by CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. Now, granted, no Joe Mixon, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. If there was ever a move the Houston Texans may need to make at the deadline, it may be bringing in another running back. But we'll get to that when we get to that, because I don't think Joe Mixon is going to return this year. And if he does, I don't know how much of Joe Mixon Houston is going to have left to be the bell cow. But we have to look at the fact that this team is extremely kind of depressing right now, man, on offense. Now, they go out there and they put up 24, 27 on Monday night in front of the fans. Then our perception will change a little bit, at least mine will, a little bit. They are still going up against a formidable defense. Todd Bowles calling the plays. So I got to respect that. But it's okay to say we just got to see it. My man, Jarrell Scott, 5203, shout out to Jarrell and his family. Is Demeco too relaxed? Why didn't he have the team ready at full go? Where's the fire and energy from Demeco? The team making penalty reflects back on the head coach. Demeco might be fired by next year. That comment was followed up by another Izzo 2998 LMAO. They're not going to fire Demeco. Agree with you on penalties, though. That's usually a coaching issue. I'm not here to say if Demeco is too relaxed or not. I think people can get the best out of, like, coaches can get the best out of players, and they don't always have to be, yelling. And, like, I saw a clip floating around of Bill O'Brien. That's how Bill O'Brien did it, and it worked for Bill O'Brien because he's comfortable doing that. I don't know if Demeco Ryans is comfortable being that fiery type of coach, holding his players to the fire. But what I do know is Demeco Ryans is a coach and a damn good coach. Jarrell, we've talked a lot. They're not going to fire him next year. And I'm going to say this. They'll move on from Nick Caserio, in my belief, before they move on from Demeco Ryans. That's just how I feel. But to the point of the team not being prepared and not ready to go, and the penalties, that does reflect back on the head coach. I think this week was all about CJ Stroud in the slightest of ways calling out his head coach, and his head coach kind of called out his quarterback and said, we both got to be better. That's why their sentiments echoed one another on Thursday when they got to the post-game press conference. Thank y'all for watching and listening to today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. If you made it to this point, shout out to you. I'm sure you're in every day. Make sure you come back for the deep dive episode. 2 segments, I'll dive into how Houston can end up beating the Bucs. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, peace.